Hi folks. In my role as President and CEO of Road to Responsibility, one of the things that happens fairly frequently is that I'll receive calls from family members, sometimes young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are turning 18 or about to turn 18. And they're usually filled with lots of questions around two basic issues. The first is, what happens when I'm no longer in school? Who's going to be providing me with support? And the second, almost always asked by the parents, is, should I become the guardian for my son or daughter? I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about how to think about and strategize for those two major decisions that you might be facing. In regards to services, the adult service cliff is a very real thing, where school services are provided as an entitlement in the state until a young adult turns the age of 22 under the Chapter 766 law. There is no such law guaranteeing services for people after they've turned 22. Therefore, you want to be sure that you're starting preparation for the end of school very early. Legally, you're allowed to begin developing what's called a transition plan at around age 16. Most schools will push you off until your son or daughter is 18, but you can start it as young as 16. Two things you want to be looking for all the time when you're trying to evaluate if your son or daughter is getting a good educational experience. Is the school pushing you really hard to get your son and daughter to simply accept a diploma and then go away? Or are they actively planning with you around the post-academic services that all schools are obligated to provide until your son or daughter is 22? Are your sons and daughters' goals being met? You know, in that IEP meeting, is every year just a continuation of the previous year's goals? If that's the case, either goals are being set inappropriately or there's not a lot going on. You want to be sure that you're doing everything you can to help your son or daughter achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. Whether you think they might need a guardian or not, whether you like every decision they make or not in life, the more we can help people strive towards things that are truly important to them, the happier they'll be and the more successful they'll be ultimately. Does that mean if someone says that they want to be an astronaut, that they're going to be going up in a space shuttle or on SpaceX? No, it doesn't mean that. But there might be ways in which we could turn that love of space into either activities or membership in the community, or even some kind of job where the person feels connected with the thing that they're passionate about. So you start with an inventory. What does my son or daughter need? Do they have friends? Are they able to make friends fairly readily? Are they going to need a place to live? If they've been in a residential school, that's a very real possibility. If not, if they don't need a full-time group home sort of placement, do you think your son or daughter might be able to live in an apartment or other setting with some staff supports if they also had daytime supports in place? What I'm trying to say to you, what I want to convey, is that you want to think as flexibly as possible about what the needs of your son or daughter are and how they might be able to be met. Generally speaking, the fewer barriers, the more independent that we allow people to be, the happier and more successful they are. Now, that varies tremendously from person to person. Not everybody can handle full independence. Some people really truly need the structure and oversight of living in a 24-hour group residence. Many people, though, are able to live with a roommate in a staffed apartment. And some can go live with another family in a shared living model. There are a lot of different opportunities available, and you just want to be thinking as flexibly and creatively about what is going to be best for your family and your child residentially. The second thing is your son or daughter interested in working, getting a job, or do they have significant medical needs whereby getting a job, at least in the short term, is probably not very likely, or it's going to have many more complications than someone else might experience. If there are significant medical needs for your son and daughter, then considering rehabilitation services might be really worthwhile. Dayhab services are entitlement services, and any adult with intellectual and developmental disabilities can be eligible for them, and that's paid for 100% by the state's Mass Health program. If your son or daughter is interested in the world of work and being more engaged in the community, however, community-based day support services or employment services are the angle that you want to take in helping your son or daughter get there. No matter what you want to continuously be doing is, first, what do you see in your son or daughter? How do they present, and what do you hope for them in the future? And then, again, having many conversations with your young adult child and finding out what they really want. And that's going to change. Some people, when I was 18 years old, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. Chances are really good your 18-year-old with intellectual and developmental disabilities probably isn't going to know exactly what he or she wants to do. However, they should be able to tell you the things they're interested in. And if someone is social and they've got interests outside and they like being engaged in the community, then you want to encourage them to enter the world of work, taking on responsibilities, and probably doing that through a community-based day support program. If they do that, they'll, generally speaking, have lots of opportunities to try lots of different kinds of jobs. That experimental approach to getting a job is usually accomplished through what's called group employment, where a community-based day support provider will have relationships with a number of businesses throughout the community doing different things. And they send crews of individual members along with a staff person to those businesses to do different jobs. Here at Road to Responsibility, we currently have about 32 different group employment sites that we operate. And they involve everything from light janitorial work to housekeeping, dusting, to working on the computer, doing scanning, doing recycling, almost anything that you can imagine doing at sort of an entry-level place out in the world is something that can be done through group employment. All that the individual has to do is express interest. And if they do that, they will be put into the queue to try out different jobs. They'll meet with our employment team where they may do some formal assessments, more likely informal assessments and conversations. They might participate in a guided tour of many different jobs through specialized software programs we have, and similarly they may do some job shadowing both in person as well as through computer software, where they can get a better idea of how their interests might align with different jobs in the future. But the key to the adult service world is starting early. When you're doing that transition planning, that will involve professionals from both the school system as well as the Department of Developmental Services. Early planning will help DDS, Department of Developmental Services, understand what needs your son and daughter have so that they can do resource planning years in advance. It takes that long to try to ensure that there's funding for the needs of your son or daughter. I wish I could tell you that if you do all of that, everything will be granted that you want. Chances are that's not going to happen. Budgets are always tight, And even if your son or daughter gets approved for every service that you would like to see them do, it can sometimes take months or years to have those services get fully in place. So you want to be sure that you're also thinking about, okay, what's the backup plan? How will things work at home with your son and daughter in case it takes a little while to get them into services? The COVID-19 pandemic has made issues of workforce that have always been a struggle for the human service field, have turned them into a crisis. And so it's taking a lot longer to get new people into the system and receiving the services that they need so much, because we just can't hire the staff fast enough to be able to provide those services. So please be patient. Be sure that you're talking to the Department of Developmental Services on a regular basis. If you're listening to this message right now and your son or daughter is 18 years old and you have not had DDS eligibility done, you want to contact the regional office near you to have that eligibility assessment performed. If you're listening to this, chances are really good you're living in the southeastern part of Massachusetts, and the regional office there is located in Middleborough. You simply call there, ask to speak to someone about eligibility for services, and they'll walk you through. Once you get your eligibility confirmed with the Department of Developmental Services, then you need to go about finding a provider. There are lots of us out there. Last time I checked, I believe there's something like 278 different providers for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Massachusetts. In the Southeast region, which is the largest in the state, we also have the most providers in the state. And so you'll have lots of people to talk to. You should do your homework. You want to be sure that whatever agency you ultimately select first provides the services that you and your son or daughter think they need and are interested in, that they have a history of successfully providing those services, and that you want to actually talk to people who are providing the services, and ideally, perhaps finding out some of the people who have been receiving those services and talk to them too, and see if they're happy with the services they've gotten and the care they've received. Everyone has different interests. Everyone feels more comfortable with different people in different settings. And so while I think Road to Responsibility is the best provider in the state, not everyone will agree with that, and that's okay. We don't try to be all things to all people. And for most people, that works out really well, but some people choose to go elsewhere, and that's okay too. What you want to do is be sure you're talking to several different providers and getting different perspectives, get a different feel for how they provide services, what do the settings look like. Be sure you go on tours. If you can't go on a physical tour, see if you can at least go on a video tour of the actual service site so that you can get a feel. How does it look? Does it seem comfortable? Are people smiling? Does it look like the staff are paying attention to the members of the program? Those are all really important things that you want to check out, and you can't get that over a phone call. Okay, you really want to get out and see the programs. If your son or daughter needs residential services, that's a bit trickier. You can ask for a particular provider, but the reality is you'll be offered certain services if your son or daughter is deemed eligible for residential services. And you need to identify, will what we're being offered meet our sons and daughters' needs? And if you think a 24-hour group home placement is really what is needed, then it's important that you understand that you're probably not going to be able to select, I want my son to live at the Summer Street residence operated by Road to Responsibility. That's not how it works. All residential providers have contracts with the Department of Developmental Services, and DDS controls who gets referred to what settings. They do their very best to accommodate families, but there are only so many people that can live in a certain group home. If there's not an opening in the place that you would really like to see your son or daughter, then you need to find out where there are openings, and then closely evaluate if you think wherever the opening is can work for your son or daughter, as well as your family. Hopefully it will be somewhere that's relatively close to your home. And again, as you're going through the decision-making process, try to set up times to visit the homes. But understand, those are people's homes. So just like you don't want a bunch of strangers coming through your house, it's really difficult to have new people coming in and out of group homes. And so please be respectful and understanding, as well as being patient. It's not always easy to arrange these things. But by doing that, you'll get a feel, again, for how's the house run? Are people actually doing things out in the world? Or are they just sitting around watching TV? Again, here at Road to Responsibility, we put a real premium on making sure that our folks are very active in the community, that they're getting out and doing things that they're interested in. Now, that's going to look different for every person. For some people, that might mean going to religious services on Sunday and maybe participating in some sort of social outlet, or maybe going bowling. Other people might have 10 different interests, and they want to be going horseback riding and playing in Special Olympic sports and seeing friends that they have. And so you want to talk about, will this fit? If you've got a really busy young adult who's moving on to residential services, you want to get a feel from the provider. Is it a busy house? Will you be able to get, your son or daughter to the places that have become really important to them? And they'll be honest with you. If your son or daughter is super busy, they'll probably say something like, we'll do our best. Chances are we won't be able to do everything, but we'll be able to do the things that are most important. And then it becomes a bit of a time negotiation, because remember, there are 3 or 4 other people living in the same group home, all of whom want to be doing stuff. Some of the compromises might be, okay, well, your son Bill might be able to go out more often if they're willing to trade off by going and doing some things other people in the house are interested in doing. And then they'll do the same when Bill has something that he wants to do. And so, just like living in a family, there are constant negotiations that happen in terms of what people are doing, how often they can do it, and how day-to-day life operates. The adult service world can be incredibly confusing. Your DDS service coordinator is a great resource, and they're the people that can help steer you to different providers in the area. But if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. My phone number is 781-536-3220. And I'm really happy to try to help anybody who's in the position of trying to figure out adult services. And while I will tell you that I think Road to Responsibility is the best place to be, I'll also tell you about everyone else in the area that provides services, and we'll try to help you navigate the system a little more smoothly than might occur on your own. The next big decision point that people have is, does my son or daughter need a guardian? And when you're considering that, please understand that that is an immense decision. Because if you become your son or daughter's guardian, they lose some of their decision-making power. And generally speaking, even though guardianships can be overturned, generally speaking, guardianships are forever. Forever is a long time. And there's been a lot of research out there that has shown over the years that the more self-control, the more self-direction that a person with developmental disabilities has in their lives, the happier, more productive, and healthier, frankly, they tend to be. If your son or daughter is about to turn 18, don't view that as, oh my goodness, I must become their guardian right away. Now, of course, if your son or daughter is, doesn't have the ability to communicate and has really severe disabilities, then they probably do need you to step in. The majority of people with IDD, however, don't have those severe needs. And for them, becoming their guardian at 18 might actually hinder things. So what I suggest to families all the time is work on your relationship with your son or daughter. If you're not always fighting the things that they want to do with their lives, if you learn to help coach them around decision making, then chances are really good they'll keep asking for your advice when important things come up. And you'll be able to exert the same level of safety keeping as they go through life as you would if they were a guardian. And you can do things like, become a healthcare proxy for them or get power of attorney in certain circumstances. But I always coach people to seek the least restrictive level of control, a legal control over the son or daughter. Chances are really good your son or daughter will be happier and healthier the more independent they can be. There's an exciting alternative to guardianship that is just trying to come to Massachusetts now. It's called supported decision making. And that's where a young adult or an adult with intellectual or developmental disabilities is able to identify a team of trusted people. You as the parents will probably be among that small trusted team that gets called in whenever there's a major decision. And it becomes a group conversation. Like, okay, what do you want? What are the alternatives? What's most important? So you can help talk them through so that they make the best decisions for them that's possible. And that's the key. Remembering any decisions that are made are for the best interest of the young adult, not what you like the best, but what they will like the best, where they will be happiest. And that's not always easy. I would also ask you, as you're reflecting on what to do, to think about what you were like when you were 18. If you were anything like me, you were probably a bit of a knucklehead that didn't always make the best decisions, probably made a lot of poor decisions. And you might have even fallen on your face a couple of times. And that's okay. That's what we're supposed to do when we're young adults. We don't have full brain development until we're about 26 years old. Between 18 and 26, there's a lot of funky thinking that can go on. It's just important to remember that just because someone has an intellectual or developmental disability does not by itself mean they need a guardian. It just means that they may need extra help understanding the ramifications of certain decisions, and they may need more structured guidance in terms of how to experience different aspects of life than someone else. One of the things I've noticed about people who work in this field and many families, and families, I get it. No one wants to see their child get into trouble or have bad things happen to them. Why should we hold young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities to a higher standard than we hold ourselves? That We're not perfect. We make mistakes. They will too. But just like us, they will learn from their mistakes if they're given the opportunity. And they'll be more open to learning from their mistakes if they feel like they've got a little bit more self-determination in terms of what risks and choices they make and take. If your child only struggles with money, otherwise they're doing okay, then you may just want to consider a fiscal conservatorship, where you make sure that your son or daughter is not going to go out and get a credit card and get themselves into all kinds of debt, and where you'll help them actively manage their money. Again, if you think about how you make decisions in your life, chances are really good you talk to people who you love or trust before you make decisions. When I'm making a decision, I always talk to my wife, and I'll talk to friends as well who have experience with something. Your son or daughter will probably do the same thing, and you can encourage them to do the same thing. And as long as you're respectful of them and the things that they're really interested in, then they'll keep engaging you. And that's really the place where you want to be. You want to be at a place where your relationship with your son or daughter is close and trusting, so that you know they will reach out to you for advice and help making big decisions when the time's right. And if you've got that, then you don't really need the legal guardianship. Again, you might want to become a healthcare proxy or something like that for those medical decisions that they may not be able to make. Try to let your son or daughter be as independent in their decision making and self-determination as they can. Again, if you do that, chances are really good you'll experience better relationships with them. They'll be healthier, happier, and frankly more successful. Thanks for listening.